Joining us now is Fox News contributor, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Mr. Secretary, we've seen Friday a million times. I watched you over the weekend. Where do we go from here, knowing that the U.S. now says that's not on the table, and Zelensky says, I'll accept what's on the table? What would you do?
Well, Brian, I hope that deal gets signed. That deal is good for Ukraine. It's really good for the American people. It puts America first. So I hope that deal does move forward. It gives America deep economic interest in Ukraine. I was heartened yesterday. The Europeans now appear to get it and appear more serious. We'll see if they follow through about doing what they need to do. Because in the end, Brian, you and I have talked about this, you have to restore deterrence. This is what President Biden lost. This is why we're having to deal with this today. For 4 years, Vladimir Putin didn't invade Ukraine, and then President Biden opened the spigot. We have to put that back in the box, and that means for America, it has to be something where Vladimir Putin is not rewarded for his success. His aggression can't be rewarded. And the United States and Europe together can get there. We can bring this to a conclusion. Everyone wants a ceasefire, except apparently Vladimir Putin. He could stop fighting today, and has chosen not to. The focus needs to be on imposing costs on Vladimir Putin in a way that convinces him that it is not worth the candle to continue this fight.
So from the early readouts, from the early negotiations with Russia, they came to the table. They want to restore U.S. relations. I didn't even really hear that before in the past. But do you believe that they are sincere in bringing this to a ceasefire on their terms? Do you think that they also are being hollowed out? Reports are they're losing 1,000 men a day.
I don't think there's any doubt that the Russian military is very weak, that they are having real trouble. They have moved their economy to a war footing. I think that's kept their economy alive, partly because the sanctions that were put in place haven't been enforced. But, Brian, I don't trust a single thing the Russians said. Just so you know, when I hear Lavrov say something, I don't take it seriously. They've not honored the agreements that they've made in the past. That's why President Trump pulled out of treaties that we were in with them, because they had lied about what they were actually doing. This is about real power, real deterrence. President Trump knows exactly how to do that, and President Trump is in a great position to push the Europeans to continue their efforts to support Ukraine and deterrence and get us back to a place where there is more peace and prosperity in the world. The theater here, the theater in the Middle East, and the theater in Asia are all watching what's taking place, and Vladimir Putin can't be rewarded.
So it doesn't bother you that they had a mini NATO summit meeting without us? And France and President Macron of France said, there needs to be a new strategic dialogue with European countries that don't have nuclear weapons, because they can no longer depend on the American nuclear deterrent. That's pretty much an incredible statement from a NATO ally. You read that. What do you think?
Yes, I think it's proven that NATO has been important to the United States for the post-World War 70-plus years. I'm glad that the Europeans are finally taking on the responsibility that they've had as part of NATO. We'll see if they follow through, Brian. They have neglected their responsibility for an awfully long time, but it's been in America's best interest to deliver security for the American people.
So we just keep in mind, Russia, people should just always keep in mind, Russia is the bad guy. There's nothing they did that warrants consideration. They did the invasion. They kidnapped the 20,000 kids. They are brutally murdering the prisoners of war while the Ukrainians take care of them in a war they started. Finally, tomorrow night, the president's going to be giving a speech talking about what he's accomplished so far. In terms of foreign policy, 19 executive orders or actions about foreign policy. What do you think you'd bring up on the foreign policy front if you were writing that speech?
I would talk about America as a beacon. America is doing great work to protect America and the American economy. I would talk about the fact he's already secured our borders. He's already put more pressure on Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela in our own hemisphere. He has put America back on the world stage in a way that we just haven't been for the last 4 years. We now have to become a trusted partner and ally, and I'm convinced President Trump can lead that. We did it for 4 years, Brian. I'm convinced we can do it again.
And he's fully supporting Israel, and that's going to bring everything to a head in the Middle East very shortly, because it doesn't look like either side's ready for a phase 2. Thanks, Mr. Secretary. Important times. We'll be calling on you a lot.
Brian.
Thanks for getting up for us.